All right. Happy to be joined by former UFC title challenger, former Strikeforce champion, Nate the Great Marquardt, who's returning to action for the first time in nearly 4 years. This Friday night at Titan FC 71 is going to take on former Contender Series competitor Michael Cora. Nate, I guess the first thing I'll say to you is welcome back, sir.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
How does it feel to be back in the middle of a fight week for the first time in a long time? Does it feel the same? Does it feel a little bit different this time around? Like what's kind of going through your mind right now?
Yeah, some things are the same, some things are different.
How so? Like what's different about this one?
I think maybe I don't know, maybe I just have a better outlook on it. I think I just a better frame of mind maybe.
We'll definitely dive into that in a second, but I'm sure you stayed somewhat attached to the sport, like training and whatnot after your last fight. And, maybe you didn't, but you made the decision to go out and give this crazy sport a whirl again. Like, how did that all happen? What made you say, you know what? I get a little more gas left in this tank. I have more to offer in the cage. I'm going to go ahead and do this thing again.
Yeah, man, it's a crazy story actually. So after I retired, that was the end of 2017. I stopped training for like a couple months and started to feel pretty horrible physically. So I decided I better get back in the gym and just stay healthy and have fun. And so I was doing that for a couple months and I was completely happy being retired and had zero plans of coming back, to compete. And basically God called me back through a dream. I had a dream and God spoke to me and very clearly called me back to fight again. So at the time I was actually in seminary and so I didn't know exactly when or where I was supposed to fight. And I continued my seminary degree, finished that last year. And this last year we bounced around a bunch from Colorado to Houston to Las Vegas, California, Arizona, back to Colorado, and then decided I better find a place to train full time. And I had plans to go to Thailand and wasn't able to make it there because of COVID. So decided to come down to South Florida and landed here in Sanford MMA.
When did the dream happen?
It was on Easter of 2018.
Oh, so it wasn't like that long after you retired.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, you know this as well as most, like this sport is a grind, like not just the training and the sacrifices you have to make in order to be successful and get to the top of the game, but also just dealing with the politics and sort of the dirty side of the sport. And for those who have watched and been a part of it for a long time, it's pretty simple to see that it's not all bells and whistles. It's not all roses. You obviously have your reasons for coming back. Did you miss it at all? Like before that sign came, like were you missing the competition side of it in any way?
No, I mean, not really at all. I mean, of course, in my career, I had fun and I put in a lot of effort and I did pretty well. So, but yeah, it wasn't. There's no reason of my own really that I'm coming back. So. But I do love the sport. I enjoy it. Like I said, when it was time to get back in shape, just to stay healthy, and my choice was MMA over like running on a treadmill or something. So, I do love the sport. I love training with the fighters and the team aspect of the gyms and kickboxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. I love it all, but. Yeah, my reason for coming back is nothing that I have to prove. Yeah.
What do you think we'd be talking about right now if you didn't have that dream?
That's a good question. I mean, I think I would be overseas somewhere like as a missionary. Actually, I mean, I do that too. Like I was over in Pakistan earlier this year, and I'm starting a ministry there. It's already started. We already have 2 schools running. And we did a crusade over there, and so yeah, I actually would like to put in a plug for the ministry. It's Exodus Global Ministries, The website should be up today, exodusglobalministries.com or .org, either one. And yeah, it's a good ministry. There are people that are trapped in economic slavery over there, and they're literally making bricks all day long. And so we went to preach over there and to preach the gospel of Jesus. And there were some people that weren't able to come to some of the meetings because they had their quota. They wouldn't be able to make their quota of bricks, which is literally, if you read the book of Exodus, it's right out of the book of Exodus. So uh, so I talked to one of the pastors over there, and he said that it's a generational thing. The kids grow up making bricks, so they get old enough and they know nothing else. They have no education. They don't know how to read or write or do math or anything. So they end up doing either making bricks or some other low-paying job, and uh, and they end up taking loans to for like medical emergencies or something like that, and they become indentured servants. And so one of the main things we're doing over there is we're putting schools in these villages so that the kids can grow up learning God's word and learning how to read and write, and learning skilled trades as well for some of the older kids who maybe can't start over. So some of the older kids and young men and women, we're teaching them trades like how to be a barber or a seamstress or whatever, so that they can, gradually come out of this cycle of poverty.
I don't know if I mean, I'm sure you're aware of the story, and I know it's not the same, but it reminds me very much of Justin Wren and what he's trying to do. Have you talked to Justin at all about what you're trying to do? Have you guys conversed at all about, your individual missions? I mean, they're not tied together, but I mean, the premise of it is the same. You guys are trying to help people and show them a different way, and I'm sure you were very humbled being over there and kind of seeing what those people were going through.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, actually, it's funny. His name's come up a couple of times in the last week, so I should probably give him a call. I haven't talked to him in a while, and so yeah. I mean, I know I knew about his ministry early on. I don't know what it's doing now, but for sure, I believe he has a heart to help people, and yeah, maybe we could encourage each other. So.
Yeah, I think you guys would have an amazing conversation. I'd love to be a part of that one. But what kind of going back to MMA, and I think it's great with what you're doing. And I know Justin came back in MMA to kind of spread his message as well, to put what he's doing on the forefront, give the voices to the voiceless. But what did you miss what did you miss the least about MMA? Like, what were you most content with specifically in regards to the decision to no longer fight again?
I mean, I maybe like the spotlight. I don't like necessarily the spotlight, or yeah, just kind of like it feels like it's always a climb to the top, as if that's the goal, is to get to get more followers, to get paid more, to be higher ranked, and yeah. So I kind of I don't like that aspect of it. And I mean, I plan not to do that. Actually, that's not my purpose in the sport. Um, so I guess I probably won't have that problem this time.
So what would you say is your purpose now? I mean, it doesn't sound like you're on this mission to get to a major promotion and fight for a UFC title again or anything like that. What sort of is the goal with this return? Is it like a fight by fight sort of thing, or is this just, how would you describe what you're trying to get out of this?
Yeah, basically, in the dream, God called me back, and He also promised that He would give me success. And so I don't know exactly what that means, but I believe it, and I'm pursuing that by faith. And uh, in the meantime, like, my purpose is, just being obedient, doing what I'm been called to, and really just bringing glory to the name of Jesus Christ, because he's the one that saved me. He changed my life, saved my marriage, saved my family, and saved me from punishment of my sin. And so yeah, just maybe another thing is like discipling guys along the way. Um, teaching other fighters how to use their platform for God's glory.
When did life change for you? Like when did you sort of, give yourself to the Lord and all that? Like when did that happen, and how did it change your life? Like, did it just come at the perfect time? Like, what was going on when that happened, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So it was in 2013. It was the first time I lost 2 fights in a row in my career. And basically, that was a big part of it. And through some other trials that I was going through, it just kind of brought me to a place where I was on my knees, and I was angry at first, but then I realized that all the problems and everything in my life were because of me and because of my sin. And so, I had 2 little children with my wife at that time, but we were on the verge of divorce. And um, once I surrendered my life to Him, everything changed in our family, and He completely restored my marriage, my family. Now we have 2 more beautiful little kids, and just our life is completely different now. It's filled with joy. We're before it was filled with the world and filled with, my heart was filled with anger and lust, and He's taken those things out of me, and filled me with the Spirit, with the Holy Spirit. Love, joy, peace, and patience, and all those things. So it's good. Yeah, it's like night and day.
How did your family react to this dream that you wanted to come back? Were they like super all in on it, or were they kind of hesitant at first?
Oh yeah, my wife has been a huge part of my spiritual walk with the Lord. And that was after I had the dream. I went downstairs and told her about it, and in the dream, God said that He would confirm it, and I didn't know what that meant, and I was kind of like asking her, what should we do? And she said, just wait. God will show you. He's able to show you that it was from Him, and sure enough, He did. And so yeah, I mean, she's just completely 100% supportive, which she always has been. And so I'm definitely blessed with a wife like that.
That's amazing. And Ian Heinisch has an incredible story. And I know just kind of, and I think it was a couple of years ago, you guys went to Thailand together. I'm sure you trained with him maybe in Colorado and bouncing around, but I'm sure you guys had a lot in common. I mean, no, I don't know if anyone that I've ever talked to in this space has been in a worse or a darker place than Ian Heinisch was several years ago. And he seems to have completely turned his life around. He's in a much better place, and he's using the platform to share his story and try to inspire others. Like, what did you take away from your time that you've spent with Ian over the years?
Oh yeah, well, so I don't know if you know this, but he's out here now too. So we were actually planning to move to Thailand together, and then but we couldn't get over there, and he ended up in Vegas for a while, so that's why I went out there. And then I came down here and said, oh, you need to come down here. So he got here. He just bought a house like a few weeks ago down here. So he's here, and yeah, I mean, for sure, it's awesome. It's guys like Ian. We do a Bible study at the gym on Mondays, and we have a good group of like 12, 15 guys that come regularly, and Ian's one of them, and he's he's definitely a very strong believer, and he's outspoken and bold and courageous. So
that's good.
That's cool now. Yeah.
Good guy to have by your side throughout this journey. No doubt about it. What about Titan FC made you go with them for this return to the cage? Like, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of other regional promotions out there that would be on Fight Pass that would love to add your name to the marquee. Why Titan FC out of everybody else?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, well, so back in December, we came out here, and I knew that I was training to get ready for a fight. And I said, okay, as soon as I get in the best shape, I'm going to take a fight. Well, it's like I would get in the best shape and I'd keep training for, a week or two, and then I'd get injured. And then I would say, okay, I'm not ready yet. So then that I did that like 3 times in a row. And pretty soon I just uh, realized, I felt convicted that I was just putting off what I was supposed to be doing. So, um, and I happen to be friends with Lex, and so that's pretty much how I ended up in Titan.
So you're just like, no more waiting around. I'm just going to pick up the phone. And once I do that, then everything will fall into place.
Yeah, yeah. I went out to Singapore to corner Ong Lan Song, and while he was out there, he encouraged me. He's like, "Hey, you just, when we get back, just take a fight, a local fight anywhere, and show the promotions that you're back on the market." And so I took his advice, and that's where we are now.
And then you showed up at the Titan FC event, got on the mic and said, I'm coming back. I'm fighting on the next card. But the opponent, at least at the time, was up in the air. And we confirmed a little less than 2 weeks ago that you were going to be fighting Michael Cora. When did you find out you were fighting him?
I think he was the first guy they offered, and then they offered like 3 other guys, and I basically said yes to all of them. And then they changed it back to Michael Cora, and so basically, I just said, look, I'll fight whoever. I believe I'm gonna be successful. It's gonna be a great fight, and Michael, along with some of the other guys they offered, were very tough, good fighters, and so it's gonna be a good fight either way.
Did you get did you know much about him? Like when you got the name, like I'm sure it didn't matter. Like I'm just going to fight whoever at this point. But did you know much about Michael? And if not, like what have you learned about him along the way?
Yeah, I didn't know anything about him. I just, although he did fight one of my teammates, Delano, but I watched a couple of his fights, and he looks like a good striker. He's a tall guy and tough, and he's well rounded. But it seems like his hands and his boxing is probably his strength.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that in your dream, God said you were going to have success with this, and he didn't really like give you specifics on what that meant. What do you think that meant?
I think that would be a mistake to put my thoughts onto it. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's actually a really long, kind of in-depth story, because it goes back to the day I got saved. I actually had a vision of a belt, and so I assumed that meant the UFC belt because I was fighting in the UFC, and of course then my career went the way it did, and at the end, the whole time I was expecting it to happen, and then it didn't, and I was like, well, maybe it meant something else, and uh, it still could mean that. I don't know what it meant exactly, but I do believe now at this point, that was one of the things. Is so after I had the vision, and then after I retired, I thought to myself, well, maybe it meant I'm going to be a spiritual champion, and so that's in the dream. I was walking with someone, and he said, look, he pointed at the stars, and he said, do you remember Abraham's promise? And of course, Abraham's promise was to have descendants as the stars, and that through his seed, all nations would be blessed. And of course, that's ultimately talking about Jesus, because through Jesus, the seed of Abraham, all nations are blessed. And so, I said, yeah, and his promise was fulfilled spiritually, because I was kind of thinking of what I had as well. And he said, well, okay, what about yours? What about your promise? And I knew he was referring to the vision. And so I said, well, I'd rather be a spiritual champion than than have worldly success. And he said, well, because you've chosen the spiritual, I'm going to give you both. And so that was right at that point. I kind of like, I didn't wake up with my eyes open, but in the dream, I was aware that I was dreaming, and I was thinking, who am I talking to? So I said, how do I know this is you and not just my own dream? And he said, I'll confirm it. And so that's when I woke up and thought something would happen right then, and went and talked to my wife. And of course, later on that week, he confirmed it 3 times. So
And that's some deep stuff. That's no
really
doubt
great.
about it.
Yeah.
You're I mean, maybe success is just like being at peace with the sport, no matter what happens. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's your success.
Yeah. I mean, but I already have that. So.
Well, there you go. I mean, it's not easy to find in this sport, like elongated success and peace in this sport. It's not easy to find. But what's interesting is like, I mean, just seeing you and develop in the sport and grow and, fight in some of the fights you've had. You're obviously a very competitive guy, and you want to go in there. And of course you want to win this fight on Friday night. Deep down with what you're trying to accomplish with this return, your why, if you will. Do wins and losses matter? Like, is it making the walk, giving all you have, win or lose? Will that be enough for you?
I mean, I think it's kind of like, any sports psychologist would tell you that if you're focused on winning or losing, that's the wrong focus. And I was always, not always, but so much of my career, I was focused on winning. And I shouldn't be. I should just focus on having fun and doing my best, fighting hard. And the win comes as a byproduct of that. So that's my frame of mind right now, is just doing what God's called me to. I look forward to fighting. I think it's going to be fun. Um, I look forward to, getting in there and being challenged and pulling off some crazy moves. And then, yeah, I do believe I will win, but
Crazy moves. I think everyone's going to be tuning in for crazy moves.
yeah.
Do you, I mean, at this point in your career, like, I don't know if obsessed is the right word, but oftentimes, like when, especially guys that are trying to climb the ranks and stuff, like when they have a fight book, they think about it constantly, right? Before they go to bed, they close their eyes and like all different ways this fight could play out. It just plays over and over in their heads. Like, do you have those thoughts at this point in your career? Like, do you start to get lost in the fight itself and how it could play out in your mind? And if so, like, how do you see it playing out in your mind?
Well, when you said they are thinking about it constantly, do you mean like the whole fight camp, or are you talking about like fight week, or what exactly?
Yeah, because like there are fighters who could sort of separate themselves from it. Like Max Holloway is a perfect example. Max Holloway can go in the gym, get his work done, go home, play video games, and not think about the fight at all. And like he'll just go and do his thing. He'll fight, and then when the fight's over, he doesn't think about fighting at all.
Mm-hmm.
There are other fighters who, when they have a fight booked, they think about it. Like they're in the gym, they think about the fight. They go home, they think about the fight. They go to bed, that's all they're thinking about is the fight. Does that happen to you at all at this point?
No, I think it did more before I got saved, because that was like my identity. That was everything to me. That was like the most important thing to me at that point. So, but now it's very easy. I mean, I actually have to force myself to think about the fight and almost like schedule time to think about, I need to do this and this and this to train or to prepare for the fight. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not my day's not consumed with thoughts of the fight at all.
Oh man, that's so freeing, right?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. It's life is so much. We're so much more than the things we do. It's life is about people, and really ultimately life is about God. That's who God is. He's the God of relationship. He's the God of Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And um, that's he created us for relationship, and so yeah, that's what my thoughts and heart are consumed with during the day.
having these conversations, like, it makes me think about so many different things, and weird questions pop into my mind. And like, for example, this one, like, your story has led, like, everything you went through, in your 20s up until 2013 to lead you to the place you're at mentally and spiritually right now. Like, that's part of the journey. Like, without it, you may not be where you're at right now. But do you ever have like these sort of random thoughts that, like, you wish you could go back, like the guy you are now, go back and talk to 25-year-old Nate Marquardt and be like, dude, like, if you just learn this now, like, maybe things would be different. Like, do you ever think about that?
Yeah, that would be nice, but that's the thing, is you can't learn it without going through it, right? It's like you can read something in the book, but experiencing it is a different thing. Once you experience it, that's actual understanding, right? So yeah, I would never learn it, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I could tell myself, but I wouldn't learn it.
that's a very good point. So who's going to be in your corner on Friday?
So my coach, Jake Ramos from Genesis in Colorado, he's out here this week. And then I'm going to have Ian Heinisch, as well as Teal Thang. I think that's his last name, Thang or Thang, Thamg. So, yeah.
Should be good to go. Nate, I appreciate the time very much. Don't miss this man's return this Friday night, Titan FC 71, live on UFC Fight Pass against Michael Cora. We've talked about a lot here. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest and let the people know about before you say goodbye, sir?
Oh, no, I mean, I just want to dedicate my fight to the Lord Jesus Christ, and definitely. When is this going to air? Is this?
It'll air in the next day or so. It's Tuesday as we record this, so it'll air definitely before Friday.
Definitely tune in, and it's going to be a great fight. I'm going to go out there with full confidence and full power. So it's going to be a great display.
Thank you again, Nate. Very inspiring stuff, the way you're approaching life and approaching the fight game right now. I think a lot of people can learn from you, especially fighters that are coming up right now. I think they could learn a lot of lessons from your career and where you're at right now. So thank you again for the time. I really appreciate it, and all the best to you this week, especially in the fight on Friday.